Hi, my name is Kevin O'Megan, and I decided to do my lesson on FDR's For Freedom speech. This is an 11th grade U.S. history lesson, and the purpose of this lesson is to cover FDR's speech and how it affected U.S. foreign policy prior to the United States getting involved in World War II. Um, some of the areas that we differentiated during this lesson that you're going to see is content area. Used a graphic organizer for separating the four freedoms and front-loaded vocabulary at the very beginning and made it available during the entire lesson. We're going to use multiple means of accessing the content using a video and printed out speech. We're going to use multiple means of presentations. We're going to use discussion along with using a slideshow for support. For our process, we're going to be doing individual reading to follow along with watching the video, so they have multiple means of accessing the content there. We're also going to do a think, pair, share exercise using peer support to help build on understanding of the content. For our readiness, we're going to use, I'm going to front load the vocabulary to help build on that vocabulary foundation for readiness. Learner profile, we're going to use bodily kinesthetic while I have them get up and move around to come and write their answers up on the board. They're also going to use address linguistic learning profiles by having them watch the video and get access to the content through that, as well as spatial learning profiles by having a printed out speech and being able to read the speech themselves. So those are some of the ways that we're going to differentiate the content. During this video, please bear with me. I don't have a classroom of my own as I'm a substitute teacher at the moment, and the audience that I was able to get to participate in this unit today included my brother and sister-in-law and my 2-year-old nephew, who I was unable to differentiate enough to capture his interest in this lesson. So I apologize. Please just bear with my nephew. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about FDR's Four Freedoms and how it affected foreign policy going into World War II. Right, Joey? Okay, before we jump into talking about what happened, we're going to cover some vocabulary first. So the first term we're going to need to know for tonight is isolationism. So isolationism was a U.S. policy of not getting involved in other countries' affairs. Prior to World War I, this was a predominant idea in the United States after coming out of before World War II, after World War I. So the U.S. was not eager to get involved in another war in other countries. Our second term is going to be internationalism. This is an idea that FDR was a fan of, that the U.S. should be part of the broader global community, that we would be strengthened by our bond together. Our third term is exceptionalism. It's this idea that the United States, our democracy, and our freedoms make us exceptional and different. And that this is the idea that our values make America great. Two laws that we're going to be talking about are going to be the Lend-Lease Act, which was a law that was passed allowing the United States to sell arms and material to the Allied countries to help them fight the war. The other law that we're going to talk about is the Neutrality Act. This is a law passed by Congress to keep us out of the war, where we couldn't support any of the countries that were currently involved in the war. Okay? Do you guys have questions on the vocabulary we're talking about so far?
No.
No. Okay. So we're going to get into the background information real quick of FDR's For Freedom speech. Okay. Just to recap our vocabulary: exceptionalism, isolationism, and internationalism. I've got them up on the board here so that you guys can reference them throughout the lesson. Alright, at the beginning of World War II, the majority of the U.S. favored this policy of isolationism, as the belief that the U.S. should not get involved in other countries' affairs. Now, FDR felt that the U.S. had a connection to other countries, specifically democracies in the world, and that if the Axis won, our democracy would be threatened. So, with the passing of the Neutrality Act, FDR was kind of limited on what he can do to help get us involved in the war, but he still believed that the war was coming, so he was in favor of getting the U.S. ready for the war. So in January of 1941, FDR is going to give his State of the Union speech. It's going to become known as the Four Freedoms speech. And the reason is because at the end of his speech, he's going to discuss 4 basic freedoms that should be enjoyed by people all over the world. So FDR, after the 4 Freedoms speech, he's going to urge Congress to pass the Lend-Lease Act, allowing the trade of war goods to other allied countries and embargoes against aggressive countries. Right? Are you guys all with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. We got this? All right. All right. So we're going to watch the a segment of FDR's speech real quick. I'm going to give you guys the transcripts from the speech so you can read along with it while we're watching the video. And then we're going to discuss it after. I'm going to have up here, these are the 4 freedoms that he's going to talk about. It's freedom of religion and expression, freedom of speech, freedom from fear, and freedom from want. So I have highlighted in pink on here is where the video.
Third, freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understanding, which will secure to every nation a healthy, peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear. It translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. This nation has placed its destiny in the hands, heads, and hearts of its millions of free.
Did we all catch all 4 of his freedoms from the speech there? Okay, awesome. Because what we're going to do is I'm going to have each one of you guys get a color. I know Kelly wants pink. And Calista, which one do you want? All right. So I have up here on the board, I put speech, fear, want, and religion. So these are FDR's 4 freedoms. So take a minute and think about those 4 freedoms. So I want to start with Kelly. Each one of you guys to come up and write down an idea in the boxes of what that means to you. What is freedom of speech? What is freedom from fear? What is freedom from want? And what is freedom from religion? So Kelly, you want to go first?
Joy. No more. You gotta put one in each box, right?
We'll just do one of each. So you pick a box and then just write one in.
Okay.
Keith, you got one?
You gotta do it. Are you making a picture, baby?
You write down his. Keep it on the paper.
What did you do with the thing?
Okay. Awesome ideas we got written down here. Okay, so we're going to answer some questions here. So FDR's four freedoms, how do they reflect American exceptionalism? So when we talk about American exceptionalism, what are we talking about?
Our democracy.
Our democracy, right?
Kevin, or Joey.
Okay,
Joey.
we're talking about our democracy, and what makes our democracy unique?
Sorry, what?
Okay, what makes our democracy unique?
Did we vote our president?
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, so when we talk about his four freedoms here, how do they reflect American democracy? So keep that question in mind, because we're going to do an activity here. Our second question is, how does FDR's four freedoms set the narrative for World War II? So when we talk about how does it set the narrative, what we're talking about is how does going into the war, does his idea of projecting these four freedoms that everybody should be entitled to these things, how does this set the tone for how people are going to feel during the war? Okay, we have an idea of that? We know what we're talking about? Hold on a second, Joey.
Joey, no.
Okay, when we talk about, our next question is, what American ideals are reflected in the four freedoms? We talk about American ideals, and what are the principles that America is founded on? How do these four freedoms reflect that? And then our last question is, how do the four freedoms speech set the tone for America's change in foreign policy? So we keep in mind, prior to this speech, our policy was isolationism,
Joey, come here.
which is staying out of other countries' affairs. And then we know we're going to get, after this speech, Congress is going to pass the Lend-Lease Act, which is going to drive us closer to war. How does this speech change that tone for America? So the process that we're going to use for this one is we're going to pick a partner here, and then we're going to do what we call think, pair, share. So think right now of an idea how to answer these questions, and I'm going to hand you guys a piece of paper, and then take a minute, write down your own ideas, and then share those ideas with a partner, and then as a pair, you're going to share back with me. We know what we're doing? Does that make sense?
Okay.
So you're going to write down your own ideas, so the answers to the question,
Okay.
then compare them with somebody else, and then together you're going to share what you guys came up with as a consensus idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get...